Good morning once again. Our journey continues, building on the profound truth we established yesterday. In our first session, we laid this foundation that the bedrock of our identity, the sacramentum, the holy, unilateral covenant oath made by God centuries before Christ came. He gave us the blueprint. I will die for you. An oath made by God in our total inaction. That unshakable promise establishes whose we are. It is the non-negotiable foundation of our security in a world of shifting sand. Today, we take the next necessary, logical step. If the sacramentum tells us whose we are, the calling tells us what we are for. Our identity as covenant people, I said, logically flows into our purpose as called people. Would you agree? Our culture is obsessed with finding a self-generated purpose. We are told to find your passion, live your best life, discover your why, be yourself. These are not necessarily bad ideas, but they all begin with the self. They are quests of introspection, of looking inward to find a spark that's missing. But the Christian faith offers a radically different and far more stable path to purpose. It is not a discovery we make, but a declaration we receive. It is not something we find in ourselves, but something we receive from outside ourselves. The answer is found in one powerful, life-shaping word: calling. In Latin, this concept is captured by the word vocatio. It just sounds so good. Vocatio is not a suggestion or a career option. It's an authoritative summons, the master's voice that interrupts our lives, our comforts, our ideas, and defines the mission of the servant. Let's return to our foundational text in Colossians 3. Bond servants, obey in everything those who are your earthly masters, not by way of eye service as people pleasers, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. We are douloi, covenant servants. A doulos's life is not his own. His purpose is not self-generated. A doulos finds his direction, his mission, his entire reason for being in the expressed will, the vocatio of his master. You are not your own. This morning, to refresh our understanding of our own vocatio, let us again walk in the footsteps of the one named the father of the faithful, Abraham. And we will see that in these footsteps we see the hopelessness before vocatio, the grace of the vocatio, and the fourfold effect of the vocatio. Let's begin. The hopelessness before my vocatio. The first 11 chapters of Genesis tell a tragic story of man's path away from God into darkness. And to appreciate the sheer power of God's call, we must first understand this profound darkness that this call penetrates. These 11 chapters tell the tragic story of humanity's decay, violence, brokenness, selfishness. Here we see the great human project of self-glorification, culminating in the Babel project of building a city and a tower to make a name for ourselves. We see the confusion and the scattering it ends in. And it is against this backdrop of human ambition turned to ash that God begins his project of redemption. And where does he begin? Not with a king or a philosopher or a holy spiritual person, but in a family that is a microcosm of this global decay. Let's read. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah fathered Abram in Ur of the Chaldeans, and Sarai was barren. She had no child. Terah took Abram, and they went forth together from Ur to go into the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there, and Terah died in Haran. The darkness and tragedy are encoded in these details. This is not just some dry detail. Abram's father, Terah, lived in Ur of the Chaldeans, a sophisticated, wealthy metropolis that was the global center of moon worship. This was not a primitive village. It was the height of human civilization at the time. The elite, complete with advanced legal codes, flourishing arts, and a complex religious system dedicated to idols. The spiritual light in the last faithful family line was extinguished. It's a cul-de-sac. This dark reality is later confirmed in Joshua 24. Long ago, your fathers lived beyond the Euphrates, Terah, the father of Abraham, and they served other gods. This is where it begins. Total decay. Abraham was not this magnificent spiritual seeker from a righteous family, the last of those who stayed true to the path. No, he was born into a house of idolaters, steeped in a culture that worshiped creation rather than the Creator. Abraham's father's, his journey, exemplified this spiritual malaise. He set out for the promised land, but settled halfway, dying in Haran, a place of compromise. And this spiritual hopelessness was matched by the personal and biological. Sarai was barren. She had no child. In the ancient world, this was not just a personal sadness, it was a mark of shame and genealogical dead end. The one who was meant to carry the seed of the future had no future to carry. This utter hopelessness, says theologian Walter Brueggemann, the barrenness of Sarah is an effective metaphor for hopelessness. This text tells us there is no foreseeable future. There is no human power to invent a future. The human race and human history have just hit a dead end. It's over. And then God speaks. Just those words, those are Gideon words. That's what you do. You go into places where the subscript is, it's over. And I listened to my friend Christo last night. When he began, I thought, yes, it's over there, up there where he went. But then God speaks. One testament, one Bible at a time, one voice at a time. And there is hope again. And in that speech, everything changes. Hope sneaks back into chaos. Speaks back into chaos. And so we get to know the grace of the vocatio. The scriptures repeatedly say that God desires all people to be saved. John 3:16, 2 Peter 3:9. Every human being has a purpose, a plan within God's will, a vocatio. And this vocatio is always, without an exception, an act of pure grace. Abraham was not chosen because he was a man of impeccable character. Go read his story. It involves fear, doubt, deceit, selfishness, disloyalty to his wife, sending her into danger. He becomes the father of the faithful, not through his own merit, but through the transformative power of grace in his vocatio. The call of God does not find us worthy and equipped. It makes us worthy and equips us for the tasks that he has given. It is a sovereign, unmerited invasion into the life of a moon worshipper in Ur. All he had to do was say, yes, Lord. Frederick Buechner, the wonderful novelist and preacher, once defined vocation as the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. It is true and insightful, but not complete. There is something more fundamental to be said about vocatio, and that has to do with the source of vocatio. The Bible places the emphasis of vocatio in God's initiative. He's the caller. The vocatio is the voice that calls and points to the world's deep need, but more so to the one Christ who can meet that need. And this vocatio, this voice of the vocatio declares Christ's gladness to use people to be instruments in meeting that need. Broken instruments. That's the blueprint of Abraham. A coward. A doubter. God uses broken instruments, as broken as Abraham was, as broken as we are, as broken definitely as I am. Vocation uses us, empowers us, and sanctifies us. You just say yes, and God grabs you. I read some time ago of the true story dramatized in Jean Anouilh's play titled Becket, or The Honor of God. It is based on the life of Thomas Becket, who was a worldly, heathen, ambitious Christian priest. You get them. It was in the time of King Henry. This is a true story. I just read about the drama written about it. King Henry and Thomas, this priest, were friends, drinking companions, bound by shared revelry. And although Thomas was a priest, both his life and the life of the young king were notoriously decadent. And when the head of the Church of England died, King Henry decided, he can appoint the head of the church. He decided to appoint his loose-living friend, Father Thomas Becket, as the new Archbishop of Canterbury. His reasoning was strategic. With his compliant, self-indulgent, promiscuous friend leading the church, that's great. A sinner as the head of the church. So he said, then my own royal conduct would be safeguarded from scrutiny and criticism. This is my body. But something profound happened to this loose-living scoundrel of a priest, Thomas Becket. When he was appointed in the office, he realized what it truly meant to be the archbishop. He became under a powerful conviction from God. The conviction of vocatio, the divine calling to be the leader of the Church of England. He realized he was utterly unworthy of the task, and this led to a profound spiritual awakening, and his life underwent a radical transformation by the vocatio. Now the king was furious. King Henry's friend no longer condoned his dark royal life. And one evening after a drunken party with 4 knights, King Henry wished aloud that Archbishop Becket would be done away with. And the 4 knights took him at his word, traveling that very night to Canterbury, where they murdered Thomas Becket inside the cathedral. And the dying Becket's last words were, "Poor Henry, my poor friend." What changed Thomas Becket from a loose-living, corrupt, ambitious and scoundrel into a man who stood for truth and justice, a man whose faith was a faith in action, and a man who ultimately forgave his murderers? Just this, he said yes to the calling. When you say yes, something happens to you. You become equipped. You become sanctified. He said yes. He heeded the calling, the vocatio of God. Don't look at where you are now. Look at what God can do with you when you say yes. So it was with Abraham. He was a man from a house of moon worshippers, yet the grace of that voice, "Come, get out there," the vocatio, took this broken vessel and set him on a path to become a man with the greatest title there can be. He's called a friend of God. So let's think then of the fourfold effect of the vocatio. We have 4 effects, and if we give about, say, 45 minutes to each one of them, then we've dealt with that perfectly. Don't you think? The grace of the calling is defined by its outcome. What happens to a person when they answer to the vocatio? The entire blueprint is laid out in God's first words to Abraham. Genesis 12. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country." I think he's saying it to some people here. "And your kindred, and your father's house, to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation." I will do it. "And I will bless you and make your name great." It isn't great. I will make it great, so that you will be a blessing, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. And this is just one secret here. So Abram went. This weak man just said yes. as the Lord had told him. He heard the vocatio. So the first effect is essentially personal. Have you read the text? Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house. God's call cuts through the noise of culture and the expectations of family and profession. God was asking, Abraham, your father stopped halfway to Haran. What are you going to do? The path of calling is always intensely personal. It begins when God stops being a concept or a belief and becomes my God, speaking to me about my life, my weaknesses, my finances, my complete surrender. Yes, the path of calling is always intensely personal, and we might add, always immediate. Vocation always addresses me right where I am today. In that sense, it is an unending, constant, continuous vocatio. It never stops. You do not retire from the vocatio. You don't collect shells. Your calling as Gideons is not just an organizational strategy as part of a big structure. It is God's personal vocatio. You should say, I am the Gideons. It's for you in this season of your life and this season of the world we live in. And secondly, the effect of vocatio always involves radical risk. Go, God says to Abraham, to the land that I will show you. You don't get to pick. Hebrews 11:8 says, by faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out. And he went out not knowing. I think those two words in many areas of life are very important, even in relationships. I don't know you, even if I've been married to you for 40 years. You're a mystery. You're unique. You have a depth that I am just still recovering, but now I'm on a side path here. Not knowing where he was going. This wasn't just a geographical risk. It was a risk of security, reputation, and of his future. And we must see this initial call to leave home as a vital preparation for the ultimate task. This daily obedience was not just for Abraham. It was the school for his entire household, including the son of the promise, Isaac. Abraham didn't just build an altar for God where he went. He showed Isaac how to live under the rule of the God who provides. You always have eyes on you. The other day I walked and I heard a little voice behind me, my 3-year-old grandson, Gustav. And he's in an English school for kleutertjies. So I couldn't believe he's addressing me in that language. He said, look, Opa, I'm following in your footsteps. The lessons of trust Abraham was now learning were not only preparing himself for his own Moriah test, about which we will talk tomorrow, that was waiting, but they were also shaping the character of little Isaac, his son, who would one day be tested to the utmost on that same mountain. I sometimes wonder who was the bravest, Abraham or Isaac. Abraham's obedience was raising a child who understood the concept of absolute divine prerogative and calling and provision. Preparing the son for his moment of active, silent trust. To live according to the vocatio is to surrender the illusion of control and trust the caller. Even when the path is shrouded in mist, in perplexing obscurity. I don't understand how God can take me out of this very important season of my business and send me to Africa. Shrouded in mist, in perplexing obscurity, in unimaginable difficulty, and in unavoidable risk. Vocatio will test the courage it requires. But thank God, vocatio will also provide that courage to those who dare to be willing to take the first step. And it is only saying, yes, Lord, send me. Faith in action. The third effect of vocatio is profound usefulness. From the useless Abraham to profound usefulness. And I will bless you so that you will be a blessing. Here lies one of the most revolutionary principles of the kingdom of God. God does not bless us to create reservoirs of comfort. He blesses us to make us rivers of life for others. This is the vocatio of the doulos, the bond slave. It transforms all our decisions. The great question shifts from the humanistic, how can I benefit, to how can I be a blessing? How can my life mean the most for others? Dallas Willard, a profound spiritual authority, died a few years ago, but he said simply, grace is not opposed to effort. You know, that's a cop-out to say, no, I don't believe in works. No, you should believe in works. Grace is not opposed to effort, it is opposed to earning or merit. Earning or merit is an attitude, effort is an action. Grace, you know, he said, does not just have to do with forgiveness of sins alone. Grace is equipment for action. And so grace, the vocatio, is a calling to action. Action that is a blessing to those around us. Our faithful effort, our ambitio is the direct result of understanding whose I am. Why am I here for? To be a blessing, to be sent. Abraham is the father of the faith. Paul says he's the father of all believers. His is the blueprint. And what did the blueprint do? Unequipped, unholy, just willing. Here I am, Lord. And then the effect of vocatio, lastly for this morning, is eternal. Abraham was promised a new land, yet he never truly possessed it. He lived his life as a traveler, a sojourner, a resident alien. And Hebrews 11 explains why. By faith he went to live in the land of promise as in a foreign land, living in tents, no title deed. For he was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose designer and builder is God. His vocatio had given him another perspective, way past this Canaan to the eternal Canaan. You might be a business owner, a doctor, an architect, a farmer. You might live in South Africa, the USA, Europe, India. But those are not our countries. You are a pilgrim, called to shine Christ's light into your temporary abode while you are just pitching a tent there. Our life with Christ is a pilgrimage to our true home. Yes, the vocatio makes us pilgrims, living with intentionality in the temporary, but with our gaze fixed on the eternal. We, the douloi of Christ, servants, slaves, love slaves, find our security in the sacramentum of last night and our purpose in today's vocatio. Our faith in action is our response to his gracious, life-altering initiation. Come, let me take you. And dear friends, may all our faith in action then be to the tune, yes, of Amazing Grace, but also to another tune. Take my life and let it be. Can we end in this prayer? It's not on just listen and pray it in your heart. Take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee. Take my moments and my days, let them flow in ceaseless praise. Take my hands and let them move at the impulse of thy love. Take my feet and let them be swift and beautiful for thee. Take my voice and let me sing always only for my King. Take my lips and let them be filled with messages from thee, filled with the gospel. Take my silver and my gold, not a mite would I withhold. Take my intellect and use every power as thou shalt choose. Take my will and make it thine. It shall be no longer mine. Take my heart, it is thine own. It shall be thy royal throne. Take my love, my Lord, I pour at thy feet its treasures store. Take myself, and I will be ever only all for thee.